Busy Thursday in New York City. We will hear from newest New York Yankee Marcus Stroman in a little bit. Bad Tiki makes his return coming up at 4:30. And another brand new installment of How Much Does Tiki Know About Tiki? All coming up. What I find awesome about sports is that we all have these strong opinions. And sometimes a moment can cause you to flip. A moment can cause you to see the other side. And for many years on this radio station, I have been a supporter of Mike McCarthy. I remember when he was available, Badingo and I were doing the show together, Tiki, and we were like, you got to hire Mike McCarthy. And even throughout the season when you, Tiki Barber, you, Sean Morash, and many of you Giant fans would take shots at Mike McCarthy, I would defend him.
I don't think we took shots in the regular season.
You did.
It was always the expectation of what was going to happen in the postseason.
You did. A week one, you said the Giants have a coaching edge. Whatever. What happened on Sunday was enough for me as just a football fan. Yes, I was rooting for Dallas that day, but as a football fan.
Misguided rooting for Dallas that day.
Misguided or what? It was enough for me to say, there's no way you can bring this guy back. And I didn't change. They changed. I didn't change. Mike McCarthy's results changed. So as I sit here today on this gorgeous Thursday afternoon, there are many football fans in this town, some of which are Cowboy fans, who have a strong opinion on Jerry Jones' decision he made last night to retain Mike McCarthy. And I, as a guy who's always been a supporter, am here to tell you genuinely that that performance, Tiki, on Sunday afternoon was so bad and was so putrid. And as I like to say, it was a special kind of awful. Jerry's making a huge mistake in bringing him back.
Look, I don't think he is. And again, I'm not for Mike McCarthy. I don't think he's a great coach. Is he a good coach? Sure. Look at what Dak Prescott did and when he took over the play calling. 2 years ago, he led the league in interceptions. This year, he led the league in touchdowns and was second-team All-Pro, I believe. Yeah, because Lamar was first-team All-Pro. He was really good, Dak. But we also know that Dak needs specific things to work for him. Otherwise, he's going to be very average. And so with the answers not being readily available after getting blown out at home, by the way, the only home team to lose in Wild Card Weekend by the Green Bay Packers, who are an upstart youngest team in the league, like, there is no excuse. There's nothing you should be able to say except Dak Prescott got better, and he has a year on his deal, and Mike McCarthy has a year on his deal. So essentially, you're tying those two together because if you get rid of both of them, as some people were saying do, you'd be sitting there saying, God, we got a talented roster, but now what? Right? So I think the hard part, if you had moved on from Mike McCarthy, and I don't support this because I think you should deserve to be fired. You don't produce in 4 years to specifically get farther in the playoffs, and you don't do that, you failed, basically. It's not about the regular season for Cowboys. It's always been the postseason. He's failed at what he's been tasked to do. But if you got rid of him, what's the plan? And I don't think there's a clear plan for quarterback and head coach.
Well, first of all,
if you move on from both of them.
I don't think that the decision needed to be linked. I don't think it had to be. I don't think that if Jerry Jones decided last night, instead of having a press release saying Mike McCarthy's back, hey, we're moving on, that wasn't acceptable. I don't think that necessarily means you have to move on from Dak Prescott. I think the conversations can be separate.
Well, it does. So you're going to start Dak Prescott again with a new coach, a new regime, a new offensive system, and you have to decide whether you're going to pay him, right? Because that's what's at stake.
Okay.
The Cowboys have to decide, actually this offseason, they need to decide whether or not they're going to pay or extend Dak Prescott. Because right now, he counts $59 million against the cap, which is an enormous number. It's one thing to make 50-plus million. It's another to count 50-plus million, almost $60 million towards the cap. You can't do anything. Right, that's a quarter of your cap.
Well, what you could do is you can restructure it.
Right, but if you don't want him, why would you do that?
Because I don't necessarily think that. I didn't come to the conclusion after Sunday's game they have to move on from Dak.
That's not either. That's not what I'm saying. Dak is their guy, right? They should figure out a way to restructure.
Well, why does he have to be married to Mike McCarthy? Why? Because he got more out of Dak Prescott, which I give him credit for, by the way.
Because if you move on from Mike McCarthy, Dak Prescott is now in another system, right? It's not. Somebody's not going to come in and be like, I'm going to do exactly what Mike McCarthy did. Yep, that's exactly what I'm going to do, Dak. I saw you had success. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to deconstruct what Mike McCarthy did and then re-instruct it and make it better for you. That's just too much work, right? There's not enough. You can't do that. So the only way to keep Dak on the trajectory that he's going on is to hang on to Mike McCarthy. Does that make sense? And so I get why people want to fire him, but it doesn't make sense if you really want to keep pushing forward, despite the playoff success, the playoff lack of success.
It makes sense for two reasons. And let me make this clear. If Mike McCarthy's fired tomorrow, would I be interested in him as a head coach? Sure. Just because something isn't working in one place doesn't mean he can't coach in this league. I've defended him a lot for his success and his resume, but what happened on Sunday was so bad, was so grotesque on both sides of the ball.
At home.
It couldn't happen. Like, you ended up saying something prophetic. You said something last week, and I was like, I don't necessarily agree. You said, if they lose, depending on how, that may determine Mike McCarthy's fate. And my response to you was, well, I don't agree, Tiki. I don't think it matters how. If you lose to the Packers, it's a bad loss. No, you're right. It mattered how. That performance was so putrid and so bad, and they looked so disorganized, and they looked so not ready to play that even someone like me as an ardent supporter said, boy, I got Mike Vrabel available. I got Bill Belichick available.
Right.
I have to pick up the phone. And I think the Dallas Cowboys, now to Giant fans, congratulations, right? Good for you. McCarthy's still here. But to me, just speaking as an IFO, as an independent football observer.
By the way, that means nothing to Giants fans because we got our asses kicked twice by the Cowboys.
I understand.
Mike McCarthy.
I understand. They made a decision that is not good for the long term. Like, they got to win. And I said this to you the other day. As Jet fans and Giant fans, we crave to make the playoffs. We crave it. To be in the divisional round. To be in the playoffs and back-to-back years. To go 12-5, 3 straight years. And then guess what happens? If you don't win, ask Yankee fans, more on them later. If you don't win, all of a sudden that bar, it gets raised.
Right.
The Dallas Cowboys losing to the San Francisco 49ers in the playoffs, I get it. They're good. It makes sense. The Dallas Cowboys at the crib in their own building getting absolutely boat raced by the Green Bay Packers, who went 9-8, and you looked unprepared, and you didn't look ready. That's almost inexcusable. That's why even I can't come on the radio the day after Jerry Jones makes this announcement and says, well, Mike McCarthy won a Super Bowl. Well, Mike McCarthy gets too much crap from people. Well, Mike McCarthy's done this. Mike McCarthy's done that. I've said that before. But after Sunday, saying it again means what?
Yeah.
That was an unacceptable slog on Sunday.
You can't defend him. That's what makes this so complicated to talk about as a sports fan, because you can't defend him at all. The only thing you can go back to is talk about his regular seasons. Look, last year Dak stunk. 2 years ago, Dak stunk. They still won 12 games.
Yeah.
Right? They figured it out. So what is that? Good coaching. So they fire their offensive coordinator, and Mike McCarthy takes over offensive play calling. Like the specific job that he took over, what happened? That goes from leading the league in interceptions to leading the league in touchdowns, and he's all pro. And it's like, man, Mike McCarthy was the dude, right? He managed this.
He was.
But I think at the same time, like the way that the reason that he help make Dak the player that he became this year is also the reason that the defense faltered, right? Because now all of a sudden, he's not arching over everything. He's specific to the offense. And on the other side, you got Dan Quinn getting distracted by nonsense. You got Dan Quinn being mentioned for every head coaching opening that's available. In fact, I think he's taken 5 interviews already. 5 interviews for the 7 openings that have been out there. So Dan Quinn is clearly looking for his next job. And it feels like maybe he was looking for his next job before last week, because they had no answer for anything that the Green Bay Packers, by the way, 25.7 years of age on average across the board, had for them.
Well, it's going to be a rare day because obviously Sean will agree with me. He's been anti-Mike McCarthy for years, so I'm finally on your side. Congratulations.
No, I flipped, Evan. And you might have been the one that convinced me all year long. I feel dirty. I feel gross. I feel like I need a shower more than even after I exercise. Mike McCarthy didn't deserve to get fired. And frankly, I don't like the fact that he's staying because he kicks the Giants' ass constantly.
Right,
So this
that's
isn't
what
even
I
a matter
said.
of that. The fact of the matter is, a lot of what Tiki said preseason, a lot of what I said preseason, I can admit I was wrong. I thought the Giants were going to close the gap in the Dallas Cowboys. And you know why I thought so? I bought into Daniel Jones' ceiling being able to be higher than Dak Prescott. I also thought losing Kellen Moore was going to be a big issue. Said the Cowboys went from 26 points per game to 30 points per game. They were damn near unstoppable offensively. With
Especially at home.
Especially at home, where they scored 30 points per game with Mike McCarthy's hands and fingerprints all over that offense. He had CeeDee Lamb go from really great to absolutely elite, maybe the best receiver in football. They lost Dalton Schultz. Next man up, you had Jake Ferguson become one of the best tight ends in football. Offensive line, we've talked about this offensive line ready to deteriorate for years. He keeps pumping them in there. He made a fatal mistake in getting rid of Kellen Moore with this. He then trusted a former head coach and his defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn, way too much. And I think Tiki's right on. I think Dan Quinn, much like Kevin Gilbride here in this town ahead of the 2008 playoff game when he was taking all these interviews, took his eye off the fastball, probably was already looking ahead to the 49ers, Eagles, or wherever else down the road, and didn't take the Packers seriously.
So
Mike McCarthy, the other thing we killed him for?
Yeah.
Timeout usage. Burning through those, not clock management. He has polished all of that up. Mike McCarthy's a damn good football coach, and I didn't think he was a bad one on Sunday.
But wait, in fairness, I agree with you guys that Dan Quinn looks awful from this, and it certainly reeks like Dan Quinn was thinking more about all the head coaching opportunities more so than devising a plan to stop Jordan Love, and that's fine, and I'll give you that. The opening drive of this game when Green Bay took the ball first set the tone. No question about it. But how do you explain that on Dallas's first drive, they were forced to punt?
Yeah.
How do you describe or answer on Dallas's second drive, that's when Jair Alexander picked off Dak Prescott? How do you then answer on the third drive, the Dallas Cowboys were forced to punt? How do you then describe on their next drive that Darnell Savage is still running from a pick six? So I get it.
And by the way, that was the game.
Of course it was the game. That's why, to minimize it, I know it's been 4 days now, so we forget. Well, I'm here to remind you. As much as we minimize it into Dan Quinn sucks, eye off the ball, the defense blew the game, the Dallas Cowboys, the number one offense in the NFL, number one. No team in the NFL scored more points than the Dallas Cowboys. Mike McCarthy, round of applause. On their first 4 drives, turned the ball over twice, punted twice, and didn't answer.
Right.
Like, just because the Packers marched down the field on the opening drive didn't mean the Dallas Cowboys weren't allowed to come back and make it a game. They didn't. So instead of putting everything on Dan Quinn, what?
Well, you can't. So that's the problem. Because when you start digging into the minutia, like the little things that went on, the reason that they didn't was because of Dak Prescott.
Yep.
Okay.
Right? This was
That's
not
fine.
because of Mike McCarthy. It was because of Dak Prescott.
No, hold on. He's
He's
the coach, dude.
I understand this, but he called the right plays. There was a third down in breaking route to CeeDee Lamb. Dak missed it. He threw it too far out in front of him.
You're right. And CeeDee could have caught it too, by the way.
Right, 100%.
Yeah.
And if he catches that pass, it's a first down, drive continues. Who knows what happens, right? Maybe they do go and score and answer, and it's 7-7, as opposed to ultimately 14-7, and then 20-7, and then 27-7, or 27-0 before the Cowboys ever got on the board. And so it's a combination. And this is why, like, when you look at what went wrong in this game, I don't know if Mike McCarthy could clearly see the answer, but when you're watching it from far away like we were on a TV set, or then rewatching it on True Media Networks or whatever platform you're going to use to rewatch the tape, you can see it, right? You saw what happened. McCarthy thought he had the answers. Dak didn't execute. Dak starts to execute. McCarthy doesn't have the answers. So, like, they're not on the same page when they needed to be. So, therefore, like, if you could, I see where Jerry Jones in his mind is saying, God, all I got to do is just get them on the same page at the right times, at the right moments, and we can be amazing. And so let's run it back. I get it. I don't know if I trust it, but I can understand why they decided to hang on to Mike McCarthy, and obviously they're going to hang on to Dak Prescott as well.
When does it end, though? Like, you got embarrassed in your own building by a 9-win team. Like, that to me, and it was startling because I didn't see it coming. I don't think any of us saw it coming.
I thought the Packers were going to get blown out.
That was, yes. Well, I thought it would be closer, but nevertheless, yes. We all thought Dallas would win this game. And as I'm sitting there watching it, it reeked of a game that cost people their jobs.
Yeah.
And as the days,
nobody lost their job, except for maybe Dan Quinn,
who may get promoted.
Right.
And by the way, if he doesn't get promoted, if I'm Mike McCarthy, I'd fire his ass. I'm with you.
I agree.
I'm with you. See, I understand looking at him and saying, boy, how prepared was he for this game? I get that. But Mike McCarthy, who I like, and I think sometimes gets too much crap, this is one of those losses, in my mind, that you can't come back from. And here's the funny thing about both of you guys. I understand what you're saying. Made fair points. I don't agree with you, but you made fair points. Come September of next year, when we're all sitting around and we're making our NFL predictions and we're breaking down the NFC East and you're excited about your new quarterback and Sean's convinced the Giants are going to win 10 games, I guarantee when it gets to Dallas, both of you guys will say something that you said this year.
Right.
Which is they will find a way to lose in the postseason. So if you know that answer next September and you know that answer today in the middle of January, how could you possibly sit back and say, run it back?
Well,
that makes no sense to me.
Okay.
And as a friendly
There's
kind
no
of
other
gesture to
option.
Cowboy fans, there
Evans,
is other option.
What's the other option? I guarantee you that Jerry Jones picked up the phone and said, hey, Bill, you're free. You want to come help us?
You think so?
And you know what Bill said?
No.
I'm going to Atlanta. Like I told you guys 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right? That looks like it's happening now.
It does.
It's in the second interview.
Did he call Mike Vrabel?
I don't know if he called Mike Vrabel.
And why would those guys say no? Because the Cowboys don't have a Mike McCarthy problem. They have a Jerry Jones problem. And nobody wants to sit there and have Jerry Jones tell them everything they need to do. Yesterday we spent bouquets at Spike Eskin. Because Spike Eskin's the opposite of Jerry Jones. He's not sitting there demanding and telling us
I don't
what to
throw any
do.
bouquets at Spike Eskin.
I know,
You're
right?
here for that?
You call them a turncoat. Your name's Evan Roberts. You got to protect yourself. Bottom line is this: they have a Jerry Jones problem. And what do? Why do we think they're going to choke in the playoffs? Because Jerry Jones is their owner, going to be still meddling. And Dak Prescott, I'm sorry, I believe in this, doesn't have the quote-unquote it factor of quarterbacks. Great regular season numbers. I don't think he has it.
Here we go! You know what the Jerry Jones problem is?
He's got to stop that, by the way. He's got to come up with some other way to snap the football. Because if I have to listen to that for another year, I'm going to go insane.
Here we go! He should honor you. He should just scream Tiki Barber every time.
I think we know that CBS needs to send Tiki Madden to a Cowboy game next year.
You know what the Jerry Jones problem is? And it's funny that we haven't picked up on it yet. Some of us have. The Jerry Jones problem, it's been going on for a decade now, is he's too loyal.
Mm-hmm.
He's way too loyal. Jason Garrett was fired by Cowboy fans 175 times before he was actually fired.
True.
And now we're doing the same damn thing with Mike McCarthy. So what's the Jerry Jones problem? For some reason, maybe it's age. Maybe he's gotten softer. I don't know. He is way too damn loyal. We'll get to your calls coming up, 877-337-6666. Plus, Tiki brought something up that I would have wanted the Jets to do. And maybe some Giant fans would have wanted the Giants to do. And that's kind of cheat on your spouse a little bit. Are you not allowed to call an available head coach while you still have a head coach just to ask them if they want to do some Netflix and chill? We'll talk about it coming up, 877-337-6666. Live from the Town Fair Tire Studios, powered by Town Fair Tire. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. But Cowboy fans, I am your voice. I know how you feel. These Giant fans just want you to have torture for the next 3 years. Mike McCarthy lost his job on Sunday, and for some reason, your owner brought him back, and it's a mistake.